On today's show, it's game day for the Ottawa Senators. We'll preview the final of 3 games this season between the Ottawa Senators and the New York Islanders.
And it's the first of 4 games for the Sens this week, so we'll discuss which goalies should start which games.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get in with a big return on FanDuel. New customers who place a $5 bet will get started with $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose that $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today is Tuesday, January 14th, and Pilsy, the Ottawa Senators couldn't beat the New York Islanders earlier this season, not once but twice, falling 4-2 in each game. They didn't have a lot of their star players in those games, and they're all back. So you know what? That's the spin zone here. They just wanted them at their best.
Ross, if I hear the words, the Ottawa Senators lose to the New York Islanders again, I'll go crazy. This is not a team you can be losing to 3 times in a row. The first 2 losses were basically carbon copies of themselves. Anton Forsberg starts 4-2 losses, and we'll get into it later with the game preview, Ross, but there's 2 damning stats for the Islanders that there's no excuse for the Ottawa Senators not to be able to take advantage of this team here. And I'm sure people are saying, Pilsy, you sound like a carbon copy of yourself, the other 2 game previews you've done of the New York Islanders. But these stats remain the same, and this Ottawa Senators team is still in that tight wild card race. And the Islanders, I mean, if they get hot, they could stay in the mix. But right now, they're second last in the conference, only the Buffalo Sabres behind them. These are take care of business type games, Ross, and you cannot allow this to be a 3rd straight loss to the New York Islanders. So I'm not calling it a must-win, Ross, but it's a can't lose.
We got to get a great performance from the Ottawa Senators. And it's not about the New York Islanders, although those stats will come in handy in the next segment. It's about what Ottawa will do. And this was the lineup in the last game. The Senators had a day off yesterday, traveled to New York, and we are recording at just before 9 a.m. here on Tuesday. No word yet on if the Sens will hold a morning skate. We'll have that information at Sens Central on Twitter later on this morning. Tim Stützle was centering Claude Giroux and Adam Gaudette in the last game. They did put the lineup into a bit of a blender in the 3rd period, but this is how they started the game. Josh Norris between Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson. Shane Pinto centering Nick Cousins and Ridley Gregg, and then Zach Ostapchuk with the hero Matthew Highmore and Zach McEwen. On the back end, Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen, Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Tyler Kleven with Nicholas Matin-Palo, and a topic we're going to dive into a little bit later as well is Levi Meriläinen or Anton Forsberg going to start tonight, and who will start the rest of the games this busy week. Pilsy, your locked on player to watch tonight.
My locked-on player to watch tonight, Ross, is going to be number 12, our New York native, Shane Pinto. Shane Pinto's been hot lately, this weekend especially. He had 2 goals up against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Oh, so close to getting that hat trick, shorthanded. Nonetheless, he would have had 2 shorthanded goals and a power play goal, but it just squeaked past the goal line there. And then he had an assist on last game up against the Dallas Stars. So 3 points in his last 2 games. This year, he's starting to heat up like we talked about. It was a slow start for him, but once he got some points in, they start to trickle in. Only 13 points in 34 games, Ross. I want to see him really boost those numbers here and finish the second half of the season strong. And of course, Ross, you know better than anyone how successful this team is when Shane Pinto gets involved offensively. So let's get Shane Pinto 1 point to feel good about it. Or, Ross, why don't we get Shane Pinto 2 points to really feel good about this team's chance of success? So I'm going to be locked on to number 12, Shane Pinto.
Offensively, he's been great, but he's been even better in the faceoff dot. Over his last 3 games, he's won 29 faceoffs and he's only lost 15. That's a huge swing
solid
to get his team momentum, and that's against Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Dallas. Those are teams that are pretty decent in the faceoff dot. So I like what I'm seeing as well from Shane Pinto. He had that 19-game scoreless streak, but since then has been able to put the puck in the net. 3 multi-goal games over the course of time since that Carolina game. So just hoping for him to keep it rolling and keep it rolling. Guy who can play up and down the lineup. I like that call out for you, for Shane Pinto, to have a good night on Long Island. How's he done career against his hometown team? I know it's the tri-state area. There's lots of different options with New Jersey, where his buddies were a couple of years ago in the crowd having fun, and Madison Square Garden. But Long Island, I believe, is the closest one to home for him. 1 goal, 1 assist in 5 career games against the New York Islanders. We got to bump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. Shane Pinto's got more in him. So looking forward to that tonight. I will go with Brady Tkachuk, who's currently on his first 3-game pointless streak of the season. Rare for Brady. I've actually loved his defensive play of late, especially in that Dallas game. I felt like he was battling down low. He's moving his feet. The back check in the Pittsburgh game, that was impressive. So he's doing other things to get himself that B game that we always talk about. But he's at his best when he's batting pucks in top of the crease, playing with speed and skill and tenacity as well. So I'm going to be looking for all those characteristics in a Brady Tkachuk game tonight. You've lost 2 games in a row against this team. You need your best players to carry you here tonight. So we could go with Stützle, Giroux, Norris, Batherson, all those guys. But I'm going to go with Brady Tkachuk as my locked-on player to watch.
I like that, Ross. If you're going to change patterns, you need your leaders, your captain especially, to help drag this team into the battle. And I think Brady Tkachuk is due for a good game, like you mentioned. The 3 games without a point, and he's on the kid line. I know we can't really call it the kid line anymore. All 3 of these guys have been in the NHL for a while. They're all on big deals as well. But Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, there's no reason why that line can't have success tonight.
I'm looking also at the Ottawa Senators penalty kill as a big part of what could go right tonight. You might remember the last loss against the New York Islanders. The Isles went 2 for 2 on the power play, including the game-winning goal in the 3rd period. Ottawa gave up that 6-on-4 goal late in the game on Sunday against Dallas, but they'd been 13 for 13 before that. The PK has been a lot better.
Yep.
Sure, the Penguins were a shell of what we expected them to be on Saturday, but still, hey, the numbers don't lie, Pilsy. They went 6 for 6 on the kill.
And Ross, the Penguins have a potent power play. They're 5th in the league in power play percentage at 25.8. I'm sure that was a lot better before going 0 for 6 as well. So it's not like that was a team that hadn't been having success on the man advantage, and then the Sens just did what every team did to them. So that was pretty impressive.
It was. And Ottawa's power play, 2 for its last 11. I'd like to see that number go up. They went 2 for 4 against Pittsburgh, but 0 for 4 against Buffalo and 0 for 3 against Dallas. So those are some keys to victory. Win the special teams and just put your foot down. I know they did last game against the Islanders. They outshot them, 34, I believe, to 13 or 12. It was very in favor of Ottawa. They just couldn't beat Ilya Sorokin, who was playing on the second half of back-to-back, and then they didn't get the saves at the perfect time. So that's the problem here.
Ross, if we're talking about the keys to victory, win the special teams, then it's time for me to bring in my stats here, because that's what this is all about. Now, I know some people have got on me saying, Pilsy, every time you comment on how bad a team's power play is, they have a good night against the Sens and vice versa for the penalty kill. Well, look, I try to only bring it up when it's glaringly bad. So bear with me here. The New York Islanders, Ross, are 32nd in the league in power play percentage.
At how many teams?
There's 32 teams. I checked, Ross.
What's their percent?
10.6%. So their power play is literally the worst. You might be thinking, okay, well, usually when a team's power play is that bad, they probably got a good penalty kill or at least middle of the pack. Wrong. They are 32nd in the league in penalty kill percentage at 65.2%. So you're going up against a team that is the worst power play team in the league and the worst penalty kill team in the league. And Ross, I want to touch on the power play, especially for the New York Islanders, because you look at power play percentage at 10%, and let's put this into perspective here. The Ottawa Senators have 33 power play goals for. Ross, take a guess at how many the New York Islanders have.
I'll say 12.
11.
Oh,
The Ottawa Senators have three times as many power play goals as the New York Islanders. I mean, 11 power play goals in 42 games. Like, they're just. This is why I said at the start, if they lose to the Islanders again, I'll go crazy, because this is such a team that, especially a team as potent on the power play as the Ottawa Senators, and especially a team like the Ottawa Senators that is trying to balance out their PK to be a little closer. Now, last weekend helped with the 6 for 6, I should say, up against the Pittsburgh Penguins, but you gotta take advantage of teams that are down on their luck on special teams, and I need the Ottawa Senators to pull through for me here, Ross.
and what your key to victory as well then?
Yeah, it's the special teams. Those are the stats I was holding in my back pocket.
So we're doubling down. You got to win special teams. Both.
They're literally the worst in both of them. Like, come on.
We are unsure who's starting in goal for the Islanders. We'll get to that in the next segment. But Pilsy, we also have an injury update for Belleville. Not one we are very happy to share, but we'll save that for the end of the show. It's a 7:30 puck drop tonight. Note the start time, 7:30 start on Long Island. We will have the postcast for you after the game. Islanders preview on the other side. Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You guys know FanDuel is the official online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. And the first week of NFL playoffs have come and gone, from big upsets to game-winning drives to expiring field goals doinking and going in. The NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. And right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. It's an Ottawa Senators game day, so let's head on over to FanDuel.com and see what the odds are. Ross, the Ottawa Senators are underdogs in this game, sitting at plus 104. The over-under is set at 5.5. So if you're feeling hot about the Sens, plus money, that's always nice. So you can check that out at FanDuel.com. And remember, guys, new customers, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this NFL playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, Pilsy. The Ottawa Senators taking on the Islanders tonight at 7:30 p.m. We will have the postcast for you after the game. It's the third and final meeting between these two teams, and there's a chance that Ottawa will be facing Marcus Hogberg, who got his first win since 2000 in either 21 or 22 with a big one over the weekend, and we're hoping that that's not a sign of things to come, because for Hogberg, well, you know what? Just put him in the long line of goalies who used to play for the Sens who could play against him this year. He only allowed 1 goal on 22 shots. It would be the fourth former goalie that they've played this year. Decord, Gustafson, and Cam Talbot, the others. But Pilsy, I'm sticking to it. This game is all about what Ottawa does, not what the Islanders do. You're not letting the Islanders dictate the tempo and the results of this game. If Ottawa is who we want them to be, take care of business tonight on Long Island. And by the way, I pulled it up, and Shane Pinto with 7 goals and 10 points in his last 14 games, plus 9 over that span as well. So he's been playing a lot better hockey of late. Looking forward to that matchup here tonight. For the Islanders, it's a team full of veterans, and they've actually got a pretty potent top line for an Islanders squad that typically spreads the wealth. And Matthew Barzal will be playing for the first time against Ottawa this year. Pillsy, why don't you run through the lines here for us?
I'm doing the lines. Oh, man, look at this. Moving on up in the world. So we'll read the lines left to right like normal humans today.
Oh, my God. You're cut.
Top line, left wing, Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, Matthew Barzal. That's the potent top line Ross was talking about.
Pretty good.
Man, you set me up here. Number 7.
Siplikov.
Yeah, you know him, you love him. Household name, Siplikov, centered by Horvat, and then Kyle Palmieri on the right. Anthony Duclair, Jean-Gabriel Pageau with Casey Cizikas, and longtime Islander Matt Martin with McLean and Pierre Engvall. Then on defense, you got Mayfield and Dobson, a broadcaster's nightmare of Pellick and Pullock. Then the third pair, Chalowski and Hutton. And in goal, we're not sure if it's going to be Sorokin or Sens abroad legend Marcus Hogberg. Sorokin did have an illness that kept him out of practice, but it seems like he's all ready to go and possibly could start tonight's game. Ross, who is your lookout player?
Well, first things first, can we get a little love for the Islanders' third line? I mean, Sens abroad, and former Ottawa 67. And then you throw in former Gatineau Olympique in there too with Jean-Gabriel Pageau. He was my lookout player last time, so I'm going to go a little more traditional route. I'll call him still the most underrated player in the National Hockey League.
Oh,
Brock Nelson. Brock Nelson's a great hockey player, and if the Islanders are out of it, sounds like he might be one of those guys to get moved at the deadline. His point totals haven't jumped out the way they have the last 2 seasons. This guy scored 34 goals and had 69 points last year, and had 36 goals and 75 points the year before that. He's got 25 in 42 games. Sorry, lots of numbers there, but he is just your prototypical, I think in a perfect world, probably a great second line center, but he can shoot the puck just as well as almost anybody else in the league, and he's heating up right now too. In his last 2 games, he's got a goal and an assist in each of them, so that's 4 points in his last 2 games. He's a +2 in the game before that too, so +6 in his last 3 games, and oh, wouldn't you look at that? The Islanders have won 3 games in a row. So I'm just looking at this from a standpoint that if you're the Ottawa Senators, your one focus other than yourself is that top line. They can't beat you. If you're going to get beat down the lineup on a fluky play, it'll suck, but you'll kind of understand a little bit more than if that line beats you, you should be able to get that under control. That's where I'm at, and Brock Nelson's a big part of it.
Yep, that's fair. That certainly is the most dangerous line that the New York Islanders have here.
And it's not even close.
Yeah, no, not even close. And as a guy that's trade bait, I feel like usually, Ross, that motivates him to play well, whether he wants to play well and stay on the Islanders or play well and find himself in a better landing spot if he does get traded. So 29, got to be looking out for him. Love that. I'm going to be looking out for Sens abroad. Number 11, Anthony Duclair. He hasn't played a lot this season. Just 14 games with the New York Islanders. In those 14 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. Doesn't pop out at you, but Ross, he is on a 6-game pointless streak. So that makes me nervous that coming up, I guess I was going to say coming up against an old team, he could be dangerous. But Anthony Duclair, pretty much every night is a revenge night for him, as he's been a suitcase and has played all over the NHL. But Anthony Duclair was a guy that I loved on the Ottawa Senators, especially when he had his full season with the Sens in 66 games in 2019-2020. He had 40 points, 23 goals, and that was on an Ottawa Senators team that was not that great. And then famously, the Sens did not qualify him, and he went to free agency without an agent and signed his own deal with the Florida Panthers. A very interesting move by Duclair there, but he's got good size, and the speed that he has is very noticeable on an Islanders team that has a lot of kind of slower aging vets. His speed will be noticeable on that third line. So I'm going to be looking out for Anthony Duclair.
It'll be interesting to see how that speed was potentially affected, as it was a lower body injury that kept him out of the lineup for 4 to 6 weeks earlier on this season. He's been back for a little while. Right now, he's been playing since the turn of the new year as well. So actually, even before that, he's had 8 games since returning, 9 from injury, and only has 1 goal and 3 assists. That's after a pretty decent start where he had 3 points in the first 5 games of the year. So we'll see how Anthony Duclair looks against his former team. As I mentioned, the Islanders have won 3 games in a row. They're a team that's kind of a bit on the rise right now, and we've seen that over the course of the season with teams kind of jockeying for positioning, little runs. It's almost like we joke about basketball where it's like within the game, it's all these runs where it's like, oh, are you going to get 10 in a row or 14? So it's like you can't let the Islanders extend this win streak like the Wings have, per se, and get them right back into it. I think right now it's a process of elimination in the Eastern Conference wildcard race rather than an arms race of who's going to separate at the top. It's which one of these teams are going to lose 4 or 5 or 6 in a row and fall out of it. So we thought that's where the Islanders were heading. They had lost 3 games in a row and 6 of 8 before this 3-game heater. So they're just back home now for the first of a 7-game homestand. That's a tough game to play when you come back from a trip. Their last game was out in Vegas. Big win for them over the Vegas Golden Knights. And Utah Hockey Club back-to-back. The shutout was huge with Ilya Sorokin in net. He made 30 saves in that one. So I'm hopeful for tonight, but you can probably tell from our tone this episode, it's a lot of cautious optimism because it could very well be 4-2 Islanders with an empty net like we've seen twice already.
Don't say that, Ross. I cannot handle if that's the case again. And yeah, you talk about the process of elimination or the arms race in the East, Ross. It's going to be interesting as we get closer to the trade deadline. And teams are going to have, general managers are going to have to make decisions. They're going to have to look at their roster and be like, look, it's a tight race here. Do we sell off and kind of punt this year and kind of wave the white flag and admit defeat? Or do we say, we're right in this, we just need one more piece and let's go acquire someone? Like we saw, Ross, perfect example, the Detroit Red Wings a couple years ago when the Sens beat down on them in back-to-back games. Stevie Y took one look and was like, this ain't it. We're trading off guys. I believe they traded Bertuzzi and another player that deadline, but they were kind of in the mix and they were wondering, do we acquire players or do we trade them away? And he said, no, we're not in it this year. We're trading guys away. So it'll be interesting to see which teams at which point have to make that pivotal decision. Do we acquire or trade off? And the Islanders are a perfect example of that because that's a team that has a shallow prospect pool and they could get a pretty good return if they do decide to trade Brock Nelson on an expiring deal here.
We will see you after the game in the postcast, of course. And again, it's a 7:30 start. Note the start time, as usually weekday games are at 7 o'clock. We'll get our boots on the ground report tonight. And also, if you missed it yesterday, Claire Hanna was awesome with us. Just perfect Monday energy to get you through the week with a smile on your face. So check that out everywhere you get podcasts. On the other side, we've got our conversation about the goaltending. I put it out on Twitter last night and a lot of interesting results. The 4 games this week: tonight against the Islanders, at home against Washington on Thursday, at home against the Boston Bruins on Saturday, and then at New Jersey on Sunday. How should Ottawa split up the goaltending for those games? And also, 2 high drafted prospects are out long-term in Belleville. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you're paying for twice? I know it's happened to me. It's definitely happen to Ross. A few subscriptions that you didn't even realize you're paying for, and Rocket Money has made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spendings, and even helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place: subscriptions, spending habits, or the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. I love the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've saved a couple bucks. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. One more time, guys, rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
All right, Billsy. So, not a word yet from the Ottawa Senators media account on if or when there is a morning skate today. For latest updates, follow us on Twitter at Sens Central. However, we do have a lot of curiosity, not only around tonight's starting goalie, but for the rest of the week. Pilsy, I know you hate starting goalies on back-to-back, so I'd imagine you're splitting the weekend. If you are Justin Peters, Travis Green, making that decision on who starts in goal, what would your thought process be, and what would your results be?
Easy, Ross. This is easy choice for me. My thought process is put Levi Merelainen in the games you feel like you should win, and in the games that have the most effect on your opportunity to gain ground in the wild card race, and give Anton Forsberg the other games. So just to explain that in clear terms, I want Levi Merelainen in tonight's game. I know it's a lot to ask. He just did back-to-back, only one day off, traveling for Pittsburgh, Ottawa, New York, and playing all those games in a span of 4 days is a lot to ask, but he's a young goalie. He seems like he's up for the task. Steve Stais mentioned in his interview that they assessed that he seemed like he could be a guy that is able to do this, and he didn't seem overwhelmed or like it was too much of a task for him. So I want to get him in this game against the New York Islanders. We cannot have Anton Forsberg start this game and get a third straight loss to the Islanders, especially if it was 4-2. And then put Forsey in that game up against Washington. The Washington Capitals have been a wagon, and if they beat you, it doesn't really affect the standings that much. Or maybe Forsey surprises us and steals a game for you there. And then on Saturday, Ross, up against the Boston Bruins. You mentioned it. You've targeted them as a team that the Ottawa Senators could leapfrog and that maybe will have a bit of a downfall this year. So give Levy that game. And then the New Jersey Devils, they're in a similar spot to the Washington Capitals, just a wagon in the Metro. And whether you win or lose that game does not affect your position or at least their position in the wild card race. So that's how I'm setting things up, Ross.
Nice. I don't mind that. I've been mentally changed forever due to the Hamburglar run. I'm starting Levi Merelainen until he is either not able to go or until the weekend. And even then, let's just ride the kid. He's 22 years old. He's not tired. It's his job. This is what he does.
Yep. Yeah, totally. So you're going to play him both games and then back-to-back again on the weekend?
Well, let's get to the weekend first. Probably not.
This segment is talking about how they're going to do all 4 games, Ross. We got to talk about it. You don't get to split it in half and cut the show off there.
Fine. We'll give Forsey the Devils. He actually had his only above 900 save percentage this year that wasn't a shutout was against the New Jersey Devils, and he lost that game. So sure, he can play the matinee in New Jersey on Sunday on the second half back-to-back, but you need these points all week long. Levi Merelainen is the best bet you have to get points. So he's playing until he can't play no more.
All right.
Let us know in the comments if you would mix things up. I said last game, Pilsy, I said I'm not comfortable with Anton Forsberg playing NHL games right now. Are they? They're tied in wins, aren't they?
Yeah, look, again, don't get it twisted. I don't have utmost confidence or really any confidence in Forsey either, but I know Levy's cool. He's calm, he's collected right now, but I don't want to put too much on him or make him feel like you better be the Hamburglar, otherwise we don't have a chance here. So I just have a more cautious approach to things, Ross.
Did you see Steve Warren, our good buddy with the Sens Nation podcast? He said that Merrilainen is actually Finnish for Hamburglar.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. I should have picked that up on my Finnish scouting trip.
I know, it's kind of crazy that you didn't, but look, Merrilainen, the one thing you have to do is make sure he stays healthy. So if that means playing him a little less, fine. But the reason
that's
why
what I'm saying
is Mads Sogaard is injured again. Really tough year for Mads, man. He just has not been able to stay healthy. Head coach David Bell reporting that he will be out until February. So at least the rest of the month for Mads Sogaard. And they're not saying exactly what the injury is, just that he is going to be out weeks. Your thoughts on that, and then we'll get to the other one.
Just, I'm gutted for Mads. People know Mads is a friend of the show. He's been on, 6 times, Ross?
Yeah.
He's a 6-time guest. Always gives us time.
Just a great dude.
Great dude. We always are rooting for him and wish the best for him. But it's one of those things, Ross, when you've got that size, I feel like you're just a little bit more injury prone. And unfortunately, that's kind of happened to Mads here. And we needed him to go down to Belleville. We talked about it so much in the offseason, and I've stayed true to it. This needed to be a year where he's in Belleville, gains as much confidence as he can, is a number one guy, is getting games, and then hopefully gets himself to a position where himself and the team is confident in him to be a backup goalie next year, as that's in the NHL, as that's the way his contract was kind of set up, as next year it'll be a one-way deal. Unfortunately, that just hasn't been the case. He hasn't been as good in Belleville as we'd hope. He's had multiple injuries. The chances he's had in Ottawa haven't gone his way. So we're hoping Mads rests up here, gets some mental relaxation as well, and recovery, and can come back from this injury and be the main reason why the Ottawa Senators make a playoff push here, because
Belleville.
All right, yeah, Belleville. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so just hoping all the best for Mads.
And 10th overall pick, Tyler Boucher, after finally getting into a rhythm, Pilsy. This is what bothers me the most about this injury here. Tyler Boucher will be out after a fluky incident over the weekend. He'll be out, quote, a while. Tyler Boucher had 4 points in his last 5 games, 5 points in his last 7 games. Like, just could not be worse timing for another injury for a guy who's had way too many of them. And I'm sure it cannot be more frustrating to anybody than him.
Yeah, again, similar story. Friend of the show. We've had him on a bunch. We're always rooting for and cheering for Tyler Boucher, the person and the player. And he's just had terrible luck injury-wise as well. And this was supposed to be a big year for him. He had been playing the most consistent time pretty much of his career, Ross. And he was finally starting to get into the groove of things. Like you mentioned, Dave Bell was starting to get a little more confidence in him. And then something like this happens. And it just sucks to see guys that are in such kind of crucial parts of their development and in their careers that have had injury problems continue to have injury issues. So again, I'll echo kind of the same statement. We're wishing the best for Tyler here and hope he can recover and get back strong.
Yeah, well said, Pilsy. We'll leave it at that for that conversation, but just really gutting injuries to a team that had just started to, they got a big win. Bon Giovanni scores a hat trick. 2 seconds left on Saturday. They get the win, but it came at a very steep cost. And we'll talk more about Belleville in the weeks ahead and over the 4 nations. We'll get a few of the guys on, but good news though, Stephen Halliday is all the way back, Pilsy, down in Belleville. After having a slow start to the season, he's got over a point per game in his last 17. I believe he has 18 points in his last 17 games. Yeah, and Ross, Dave Bell has been aware of that and has been rewarding him as last game up against the Wilkes-Barre.
Wilkes-Barre Scranton is Scranton a part of that too? How many names are they repping here?
Well, I'm rewatching The Office right now, so I'm a big Scranton connoisseur.
All right, so the Michael Scott Penguins
Yeah.
up against them. Stephen Halliday is in a number one center on this team, and he's got some nice line mates. This is a hashtag friend of the show line for the Belleville Senators. Crooker, Halliday, and Oscar Pettersson was their top line. So you're really putting in a good spot there because Ross, that's how I like my lines to go. I've mentioned this. I want a playmaker, Stephen Halliday, not a disher. Actually, he is a disher. Crooker, sniper, and then Pettersson, a guy that's going to grind and forecheck hard and make sure he's getting the puck for those guys. But also, if you give him time and space, like if Crooker's covered, Halliday can pass it over to Pettersson knowing he's got a great shot and can finish as well. So that is a nice looking first line for the Belleville Senators.
And we're hoping that they can get because they did win on Saturday, but it had been a rough week and a half for the Belleville Sens.
Yeah.
All right, Pillsy, final thoughts from me on the show. I was doing some digging, the LOSP stats department yesterday. I posted this on Twitter. The most 20-plus mile-per-hour speed burst this season. Tim Stützle, I mean, the eye test shows this as well, has speed. The only players in the National Hockey League with more 20-mile-an-hour speed bursts this year are Martin Necas of the Carolina Hurricanes, who only has 2 more than him.
Okay.
Connor McDavid.
Pretty good.
And Nathan McKinnon. Not bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty good company. And he's
awesome.
ahead of Rupe Hintz. And if you want to know how fast Rupe Hintz is, just ask Zach Ostapchuk off that rush play that got Dallas the opening goal of the game on Sunday. And Braden Point is next behind that. So He's up in some elite company there, some of the fastest forwards in the National Hockey League.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a nice little pull there. Credit to LOSP stats department for that one. Final thoughts for me, Ross, is we didn't do a prospect roundup this week. We just had Claire Hanna on, weekend preview, and now we got games to preview. So we got to talk about how Blake Montgomery continues to keep it going here for the London Knights in his last oh my God. When I got to open the show more on his game logs on Elite Prospects to find a game where he didn't have points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 straight games with a point, Ross. And the last 3 games, he had 2 goals up against Owen Sound, 2 goals and assist up against Windsor, and then a goal and 2 assists up against the Ice Dogs. So like, this guy is absolutely unstoppable. I know you're calling him a blue chip prospect now, but it's not that crazy, Ross. As 23 games with the London Knights, he has 32 points. He's projected to finish with 72 points in 52 games. This guy is elite.
Well, in 4 of his last 7 games, he has 3 points in each of them. Like he's not just getting 1 point a game. Like it's a point streak. But he's getting 3 points. It's outrageous how solid he is.
Yep.
7 shots on goal in his last game. He's 6'4". He can fly. And while we're on this, Scott Wheeler with The Athletic put out his mid-season prospect pool rankings. Ottawa 27th, up from 32 last year. I believe they were dead last year. He does say out of all the teams that he's done so far, Carter Yakimchuk is the top prospect. But he says Ottawa just doesn't have a whole lot of depth after that. I would say they have a lot of depth that could work out, but definitely not as many blue chip prospects. He's got Stephen Halliday at 2, Zach Ostapchuk at 3, Xavier Bourgault, which I strongly disagree with here at 4, Levi Meralainen at 5, and Blake Montgomery at 6. For the full list, you can go check it out at The Athletic. But, man, call it recency bias all you want, but Levi Meralainen has to be number 2 behind Carter Yakimchuk. No?
Yeah, probably. It's like we're a hashtag goalie friendly show, and stringing along a couple wins for a Sens team that has struggled and has not had good goaltending really looks great. But I do think like it's a small sample size, so we can't get too far ahead of ourselves. But certainly I would have Levy over Xavier Bourgault. That I can tell you for sure.
Yeah, that's one of those where I feel like prospect analysts, they hang on to guys who they loved in their draft year, and they're like, no, he'll figure it out. Like, he's got 12 points in 30-some games with Belleville. I'd be looking at a couple guys ahead of him for sure, including Blake Montgomery, way ahead of Xavier Bourgault. I'd even throw some guys lower down on that list ahead of him too, but I don't want to get carried away here either. Pillsy, I'm excited about tonight's game, man. I really think Ottawa's got a chance here. 3's a streak, right? Islanders already got the 3. Ottawa has a chance to tonight. Sens coming off 2 big weekend wins. So I think we got to hope and pray for this one, because losing the season series 3-0 to the Islanders would be a death sentence when you're looking at points at the end of the year and saying, how could we have gotten those extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points on the line? You got to get 2 of them.
Yep, can't lose tonight. I'm predicting a 4-2 Ottawa Senators victory.
Okay, a little turntable there.
Yeah, flip the switch there, Ross.
You flipped the switch. You certainly did. For more, check us out on Twitter at Sens Central and catch up on yesterday's episode with the one and only, the incomparable Claire Hanna. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.